Good morning. Coming up next, we have Jesus Pillay to share about Hedy, multilingual programming for education. Let's give him a big hand.
Hello everybody, my name is Jesus Pelay. I am a developer in the Hedy programming language, and I also teach computer science in the University of Carabobo, located in Venezuela, where I come from. And today I want to talk to you a little bit about the Hedy programming language, what it is, the ways in which it might be useful to you, and different ways in which you can also get involved in the project. So let's begin. And first, I will summarize what Hedy is real quick in 3 core tenets. So Hedy can be said that is a gradual, multilingual programming language built for teaching. And I know it's a bit of a mouthful, but I will be explaining what each of these concepts mean in the context of Hedy. But before doing that, let's delve a bit deeper into the misconceptions that we as programmers have when teaching programming. Because we know programming, that's easy, right? Teaching programming is not that hard, except it isn't. And we have a series of misconceptions and wrongdoings when we want to teach programming. And the first one is that we think that compilers are friends, right? They give you the error, the exact place where it's located, so you can fix it. But compilers are not your friend. They're merely a tool. And they are very much designed for professionals. A compiler is designed for someone who works professionally doing programming, and not for a kid who is just starting to learn programming. Perhaps they are not as proficient with computers or even with reading. So error messages and compilers are really intimidating to them. And the second issue is also comes from the fact that compilers and programming languages are designed for professionals. And we often think that syntax is not really an issue, that you can really begin programming and you can overcome the syntax barrier quite easily, because that's not important. The important thing is to begin programming and learn the concepts. Except that syntax really poses a barrier for students. There is a study that says that 50% of programs submitted by students have errors, and 75% of programs submitted by the weaker students have errors. So these are not students that are having fun with a compiler. They are throwing everything they can at the problem and see what sticks. So we think that we can improve the learning experience of programming by making syntax simpler. And this third misconception is that we mostly learn alone. We think about learning programming as someone sitting in front of a computer, reading a book alone in the room, but that is not true anymore. Many schools in the world offer programming as in their curricula. So we must design tools that are tailored towards that demographic, people learning programming inside of a classroom. And these were some of the misconceptions that were in the mind of Felina Hermans. She is the creator of Hedy. She is a PhD researcher from the Netherlands, and she was teaching programming as a high school activity, as a Saturday activity for kids. They asked her if she could teach them programming, and she said, yeah, of course. And the language she chose to teach programming to the kids was Scratch. And Scratch is a great language. It's simple. There are no error messages. There is no syntax because you program by rearranging the blocks, and it's really fun because you can, for example, this program here makes the cat do meow meow sounds and move around. That's really fun. But as time went on, the kids said to Felina, well, this is fun, but we want a real language. This is a toy. I want a language that is used in the real world. So she chose Python. And Python is another great language. It's used in many schools to teach programming. Many professionals use it as an engineering tool. So that's where the problem lies. Because Python is still designed for professionals. And for example, if I want to teach this snippet to my class. This is the first class of programming. I want to teach them to print something, which is not that exciting. They come from scratch where they were making the cat move around. So now they have to print text on a screen. But it's the first class. They have to go along, right? So if I want to teach them this, I have to tell them you have to write print on the keyboard. Then you have to write opening parentheses, which is Shift 8 in the keyboard, then the quotation mark, then the text, another quotation mark, and then a closing parenthesis, Shift 9 in the keyboard. Because they don't really know to type in the keyboard just yet. Kids, they are not as proficient with computers. So if everything goes well, we have text on the screen. How exciting. But what happens when there are errors? What happens, for example, this kid here? He wrote print using an uppercase P. And if he clicks run, boom, we have this error message. There is traceback, there's a file path, there is the code, and then at last, you see name error, name print is not defined, did you mean print? And as error messages go, this is not really the worst. There is even a suggestion there in the end. But before reaching that suggestion, you have to screen through a bunch of stuff that you don't really care. And if you are a 12-year-old, what are you going to do? Teacher, please help me. I don't understand this. And as this kid is asking for your help, this kid also made this mistake. So this kid here wrote what they think was a perfect program. But we know that there is an error there because there is a red squiggly line. So what happens if they click run? Indentation error, unexpected indent. Teacher, what the heck is an indent? So as you can see, Felina was not happy, the kids were not happy, so what was really happening? So we see here that if I'm trying to teach programming, if I'm trying to teach a snippet to someone, I don't want them to see the syntax. I want to teach the underlying concept. For example, here, I'm trying to teach them to their concept of repetition, and that it will print 0, 1, 2, and 3. But what are the kids really seeing? They're seeing that there is space, there are brackets, there are columns, there are a series of keywords that they have to put in a certain way, otherwise it will fail. So we have short-term memory. Humans have a short-term memory that is really small, about 6 places. People that know programming, we can use our long-term memory to aid us. So for us, this doesn't occupy 6 places in our short-term memory. It occupies only 1 place because we know, oh, this is a for loop right away. But for a kid, it occupies a lot more because they have to occupy that with the syntax, with the column, with the brackets, with the spaces. And their mind is so occupied by the syntax that they are not really seeing the underlying concept. They have to first learn the syntax, and then they say, oh, this is what it does. So how can we solve this? How can we solve that this syntax thing is so complicated at first? How do other disciplines manage this? Well, we can look at language. If I'm teaching English to a kid, and at first I don't tell them, oh, that is an ugly A. That's very ugly. No, I tell them, oh, kid, perfect, you wrote an A. And then I teach them about words, and then about uppercase letters, and then punctuation marks, and then, at last, syntax and grammar. So what happened here? The rules changed gradually. We went from a really simple concept about just writing letters, and we ended up doing something really complex, like grammar and syntax. Imagine if I'm trying to teach a 5-year-old to write a really complex sentence. You can do it because they don't even know what a letter is. So that's kind of what's happening with programming. What about mathematics? In mathematics, something like this also happens. For example, if I'm teaching subtraction to a kid, first, they don't know about negative numbers, right? So I said that 5 minus 3 equals to 2. And 3 minus 5, you can do it, is 0, or maybe it's an error. But then, that's not true, right? I tell them, well, you can subtract 3 minus 5 equals minus 2. and the rule changed. And the same thing happens with a square root. First, I tell my students the square root of 4 equals plus minus 2. And the square root of minus 4, no. You can't do it. That's an error in the calculator. Except that's not true. And then I change the rule when I'm teaching them about complex numbers. And I tell them the square root of minus 4 equals plus minus 2i. So what would happen if we teach code gradually as well? And this is how Hedy was born. So it is a little example about one concept. This is a concept of printing text and getting input from the user. At first, in level 1, the code is really simple. This is a really simple programming language. It consists of only a handful of keywords, with keywords or commands, and there are no variables, there are no syntactic elements, there is nothing like that. There are no for loops. It's just print and output text and input text. You see that there aren't even variables. So to repeat what the user just put in the ask, they have to use the echo command. In level 4, now I've changed the rules. Now you have to use quotation marks. You have to use variables. So now ask commands change to name is ask. And in the print, you have no echo anymore. So you have to put the variable inside the print. So what this means that the kid knows that a more complex syntax equals a more fun program, because I can do more things. In the first level, it's really limited. I could not really do a lot of things. But in level 4, there's a plethora of things and stories I could create because the syntax allows me to it, because it's more complex. In level 18, we end up programming in a valid subset of Python, which is our objective. We want them to nurse them from not knowing programming until they know a little bit of Python, so they can move to learn Python after they learn Hedy. This is another concept. This is the concept of repetition. First, again, the concept is introduced as a real simple concept. I only allow for the repetition of only one instruction. So here is only repeat 3 times, print, Hedy is fun, cool. But that does not really allow me to do a lot, right? I want to repeat blocks of commands. So in level 8, I changed the rule. And now you have to use indentation, and now you can print and repeat several instructions. Of course, that makes the level more complicated, because now I have to worry about spaces. But that allows me to make more fun programs. Now I can repeat a lot more things. In level 11, the rules change again. And now you have the repeat is substituted by the for loop. So now it's for number in range. So it's very similar, and we're getting to Python eventually, just that we don't have brackets or parentheses here. And it's important to note that the syntax of level 11 is not compatible with level 8. So essentially, each level is its own mini programming language that it's built on top of the previous one. Cool. So that is gradual. But what about multilingual? So we ran a study, and we told kids that, kids told us that they loved Hedy, but they wanted to program in their own language. And to us, this was a little bit surprising, because they were Dutch kids. And Dutch people, they know a lot of English. So it's a little bit surprising that they wanted to program entirely in Dutch. But it's not that surprising when we think about Arab kids, or Chinese kids, or Venezuelan kids, where perhaps knowledge of English is not as common, or they use a different type of script. And for example, if I'm trying to teach print to an Arab, I not only have to teach them about parentheses and quotation marks, I also have to teach them what a P is, what a R is, because they don't know it. And they even have to learn about changing from Arab to English, and it's a mess. So now Hedy is available in 56 languages, and you can see it here in Spanish, Arab, Japanese, and German. So what essentially happens here is that the keywords are substituted by the ones equivalent in their own language. And we can also support different numbering systems. So if you are an Arab kid who does not use the Latin numerals, but uses the Arab system, they can entirely program in their own language, which is really exciting because they don't have to learn yet another thing in order to learn programming. Cool, so that's it for multilingual. But what about built for teaching? So programming, learning programming when you are alone in your room allows you to learn a lot more at your own pace. But if you're a teacher teaching programming, you want help in order to do that. And Hedy offers that not only by being designed in a level-by-level basis, so it offers a step-by-step guide, but we also offer a whole system that helps teachers in their task. For example, let's contrast it with Scratch. And Scratch is designed for someone who is learning alone, because this is a blank canvas. So me, as a teacher, I have to think, what can my students build? So I have to think about the lesson. I have to research what are the appropriate lessons. And after I design or find one, then there will be the kid who says, what can I do now? Teacher, can you help me? And that's fine, you go and help them. But after you go and help this kid, there's another kid in the opposite side of the classroom who just built this. And he says, teacher, can you help me here? I need to debug this program. So now you have to understand this code is complicated as 5 other kids are trying to ask for your help. So it's not easy. So what Hedy offers is that it puts kids in a sandbox. So if you are in level 5, the complexity of the programs we can build is limited. So there will be no kid trying to program something really complex in level 5 because the complexity of the programming language itself does not allow it. At the same time, we offer ease of use with adventures, which are like the lesson plan, classes, quizzes, etc. And all of this is customizable. So if you are a teacher and you don't like or examples or exercises, you can build your own. So there is no limit in that regard. Cool. So now let's talk about the architecture of Hedy. Hedy uses a really simple client-server architecture where the programs are written in the client in Hedy, then are passed to the server where they are transpiled to Python. When they are transpiled to Python using Lark, we then send them back to the client when they are executed there using Sculpt. Sculpt is a library that turns Python to JavaScript, and then that JavaScript is executed inside of a sort of a virtual machine created in JavaScript. So let's see, what are some architectural challenges? Because there are not many programming languages that are 80 mini programming languages and support 56 languages. So we have to face a series of challenges that we have to overcome. One of them is that we used to use this editor called ACE. But ACE doesn't really support right to left languages. So people speaking Arab and other languages, they were having problems. So we have to face the decision. Do we want to devote ourselves 1 month or several weeks to replace this? So we said yes, because we want to be as accessible as possible, not only in the language, but also in the entire UI system. So we replaced it, and it was hard. Why it was hard? Because we had to maintain 18 different of these. These are EBNF grammars. So what essentially you have to do is that we have to maintain 18 different mini grammars that are built on top of one another. So how do we get to level 18? First, we have to build the grammar of level 2 by merging the grammar of level 1 with the grammar with the changes of the grammar 2. So once we merge them together, we have a full grammar. And we go and we do this progressively until we reach the desired level. We have to modify a little bit of add our own flavor of EBNF, where offering us more facilities for this grammar merging step. And in the side of in the front end, we also have to maintain grammars for that because they don't use the same parser generator, right? There is a parser generator for transpiler and another parser generator for highlighting. So we have to do all of that with 18 different levels. Okay, so what about open source? So I am Venezuelan. I come from Venezuela. I work in a Dutch project. So how the hell am I here? And it's a fun story. Because Felina started this project in 2020, and in 2021, I was just completing my programming language course, and I wanted to put that in practice. So I contacted her in Twitter, and I say, hey, might I help you with your programming language? I don't know a lot, but I might be of use. And she told me, yes, of course. And she arranged a meeting with me, and she told me about how to use GitHub and what issues I might choose. So she was very helpful, and that was impressive to me because she was a researcher from a high top university in the Netherlands, and I was a nobody from Venezuela, and she helped me. And what this means is that we as a project are try to be as open as inclusive as possible. We try to include everyone in our project, and that also stems from our own system design. There are places in our system that is not as complex as it might be because we want students to be able to use our project and develop in it and in the easiest way possible. So sometimes that means more hurdle to us maintainers, but to them it's easier because they don't have to set up a complex project. And if you want to get involved with us, you might do so by joining the Discord link here. You might go to the GitHub page, and you, of course, might visit hedy.org. You might help us by just joining there with your ideas, book reports. You might also translate from English to your own language. So yeah, thank you very much for your time. And I hope to see you in our Discord server.
Thank you, Jesus Pillay, for a wonderful sharing. If you would like to discuss with our speaker about this topic, you proceed to the social area outside. The next session will be Cyrus Wong and Lau Mei Yan at 11 a.m. and they will be talking about Azure Adventure, a RPG game to test students' Azure practical skills. Before the end of this session, we have an announcement.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I have a few exciting announcements for you. So first,